Hello and welcome to Route 99. This is DPM055. We have an RC here. It was a 455 word passage from the social science genre. Let's read the RC. More than 230 of the world's wealthiest people, including Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett, have promised to give at least half of their fortunes to charity within their lifetimes or in their wills by signing the Giving Pledge. This movement stands in contrast to the practices of many of the philanthropists of the late 19th and 20th century. So, maybe in the 19th and 20th century, people weren't this philanthropic that they would give half of their wealth. That is what the author is saying. Because present day contemporary billionaires have pledged to give away half of their wealth as charity. Industrial titans like oil baron John D. Rockefeller, automotive entrepreneur Henry Ford, and steel magnate Andrew Carnegie established massive foundations that to this day have big pots of money at their disposal despite decades of charitable grant making. So maybe these people made charities but weren't used properly. So the charity of older entrepreneurs are still present in till this time. The companies they found still has big pots of money at their disposal. The kind of control over funds after death is usually illegal because you can't take it with you. Legal doctrine that originated 500 years ago in England. So it is illegal to hold your wealth after death because of some you can't take it with you legal doctrine known as the rule against perpetuities. So you can't take it with you legal doctrine has a legal name called rule against perpetuity. It holds that control over property must cease within 21 years of a death. So 21 years are posthumously. Until those 21 years you can keep that wealth. After that you'll have to give it away. But there is a loophole in that rule for money given to charities, which theoretically can flow forever. So this rule has an exception, charity, which you can keep flowing forever. Without it, many of the largest US and British foundations would have closed their doors after dispersing all their funds long ago. So if this weren't the case, many of the US and British largest foundations would have closed their door after disbursing their funds long ago, right? But they don't do it. Why? Because rules against perpetuity has an exception that charities can last forever. The rules against perpetuity originated in England in the 1530s during a period of political turmoil, initially designed to break an old feudal system that hindered the transfer of property. Henry VIII sought to make property owners more accountable and taxable by permitting property transfers between generations, but with restriction. So this rule against perpetuity was formed during a political turmoil to break the old feudal system where a person can transfer its property to the next generation, but with certain restrictions. Court later refined this rule, allowing property transfer to offspring at age 21. Concurrently, wealthy individuals were urged to donate generously to charitable causes, sometimes with long-term conditions. So that the rule was altered, and it was bring to the chain that you can transfer your wealth to your offspring, your child, at the age of 21, right? And after that, many wealthy individuals were urged to donate generously to charitable causes as well. By the 1590s, England faced numerous challenges, including wars and a pandemic. Elizabeth I, Henry VIII's daughter, addressed this by formalizing the role of charitable donation in 1601 through the statute of charitable uses. So in 1590, there were many challenges, including a pandemic, and during that time, this Henry VIII's daughter addressed this problem by formalizing the role of charitable donations. Right. This law incentivized wealthy individuals to contribute to charities and granted court the authorities to enforce the term of these donations. The state saw this as a way to ease its financial burden in aiding the poor, a principle that has found resonance in contemporary conservative thought in US and UK. So during these challenges, there was poverty in the country. So the ruler back then, at the time, what did she do? She incentivized charities, so people would donate more, and thus the government's burden would reduce of helping these poor people. When the US broke away from the Great Britain and became an independent country, it wasn't always certain that it would stick with the charitable exceptions. So when US separated from Great Britain, right, it wasn't certain that whether it would keep this rule of perpetuating and as exception. Some states initially rejected the British law, but by the early 19th century, every state in the US had adapted the rule against perpetuity. In the late 1800s, okay, so in the beginning they weren't sure whether they want to keep this rule or not, but initially some states also rejected it. So if you know, every US state has a separate constitution, so they can choose which rules to keep, which to reject. So in the initial days, some states even rejected this rule against perpetuity. In the late 1800s, scholars started debating the value of rules against perpetuity, even as a large foundation took advantage of Elizabeth philanthropy loophole. So people started debating about it, right? But there was some organization who were taking advantage of this Elizabeth's philanthropy loophole. What was the loophole? Just because now people, okay, let's just read this out. As of 2022, 40 US states have ended or limited the rule in every jurisdiction, including the District of Columbia, permitted eternal control over donations. So many states have limited the rule, and every jurisdiction, almost every state, including District of Columbia, has permitted eternal control over donations. Right. Although this legal precept has endured, many scholars, charities, and philanthropists question whether it makes sense to let foundation hang on to massive endowment with goal of operating in the future in accordance with the wishes of a long gone donor, rather than spend that money to meet society's needs today. So what is happening now due to this loophole? What people do is people donate a lot of money in the name of charity, and that fund remains with that particular charitable organization for long, and it is then used according to the wish of people who has control over it, right? And thus, rather than helping the people who are in need right now, this works in accordance with the wishes of the long gone. So this works in the favor of these multinational corporations whose owner long gone donors have passed away. Right. Let's move on to the questions. Rule against perpetuity can be traced back to having charitable intention. Charitable intentions तो बिल्कुल नहीं थी. The Queen introduced it to lessen government's burden of helping poor people. Flawed conception. Was it flawed? In the starting, his conception was very clear. The Queen was very clear why she wanted to introduce this law. Right? She knew that this loophole might come and people would leverage this loophole. So the conception was not flawed. She deliberately incentivized charity so that people would donate more. Sovereign objectives. Yes, it had sovereign objectives. Who was the sovereign at that time? Queen Elizabeth. And she wanted to lessen the government's burden. So yes, there were sovereign objectives. Social consideration. Again, a positive term. There was no social consideration. It was done to help the government bear the burden. So this also cannot be my answer. Hence 3 is my correct option. All of the following do not accurately encapsulates the trajectory of charitable exceptions except, okay, what is this charitable exception? People can keep their charity for forever if it is done to, it has been donated. From easing the state's financial burden and caring for the poor, correct, to completely absolving the state of its responsibilities, completely absolving the state. This is true that it was initially started so the government would get a little support in carrying the financial burden to help the poor. But did it completely absolve the state from its responsibility? The answer is no. From aiding the creation of enduring foundation to encouraging philanthropic commitment of donating at least half the fortunes, is it because of this charitable exception trajectory that people are donating half of their fortunes? The answer is no. From encouraging the rich to donate towards charitable causes to debate on allowing the rich to hang on to massive endowment indefinitely. Yes, this, if you see, matches with the flow of the passage. It was first started to encourage the rich to donate towards charitable causes, right? So thus the government burden could be lessened. To now it has become a topic of debate. Well, people are debating that is it all right to let them hang on to their massive wealth indefinitely? From Munas creating a limitation on generational wealth transfer to the rule having popular appeal in modern society. Does it have a popular appeal in the society? No, people are debating over it. People are not happy with the rule. So this also cannot be my option. This cannot be my option. This cannot be my option. Hence 3 is my correct option. As of 2022, 40 US states have ended or limited the rule, and every jurisdiction including District of Columbia permits eternal control over donation. Which one of the following best captures the essence of this sentence? So there is a seismic shift in how we think about generational wealth and property control. Has there been a shift? Right, shift of any kind? No. No, there has been no shift. And seismic shift is clearly there hasn't been a seismic shift. The focus on encouraging philanthropy has continued to remain a priority. Has it been? At first, yes, there were efforts to encourage this. So exceptions were made, new rules, policies were brought upon. But has anything about present being said where they are encouraging philanthropy? The answer is no. The feature of charitable exception could be seen as a sign of societal value of enabling charity. Yeah, this is not wrong. This could be it that charitable exceptions were made so that they could enable charity. This is a rather what do I say? बहुत घुमा के बोला गया है sentence. But this seems like this is a correct sentence. Unlike these two which were completely wrong, this is a correct sentence. While the rules against perpetuity has been relaxed, the charitable exceptions endure. Has the rule been relaxed? No. This rule against perpetuity was relaxed, and thus exceptions came into existence. So you see there is a logical flaw in this sentence, right? So this also cannot be my option. So we are only left with option number 3. Hence this is my correct option. All of the following is not true based on the passage except, okay, not true except. So we are looking for a true option. 2 negative forms a positive. The giving pledge initiative is more beneficial than charitable organization. Yes, it seems like it. The giving pledge initiative is more beneficial than charitable organization. Let's just keep it. Philanthropists of the early 20th century benefited from the charitable exception. Yes, this is completely true that philanthropists purely benefited from the charitable exception. It helped them hold on to their wealth for eternity. This is completely true. Effort to meet society's needs of the future is a compelling reason for foundation taking advantage of loopholes. Is that so? Are the reasons altruist? No, we cannot say that. We don't know if they weren't altruist, but there has been no mention of there has been no mention of altruist motive in the passage that they were doing it for the greater good of the society. So this surely cannot be my option. Loopholes in running charitable organizations do not exist outside of the US and UK. Can we say so? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. They have only talked about US and UK. We don't know about any other countries, so this also cannot be my option. And this here, if you see, although this is true, this can be inferred from the passage, but this hasn't been never clearly mentioned in the passage that the giving pledge initiative is more beneficial than charitable organization, right? So hence 2 is my correct option. So that was the video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. So in the meantime, if you haven't joined our DPM community, the link is in the description. Please go join it. There's a Telegram group, there's a WhatsApp group where you will receive this DPM sheet daily. Thank you.